This is an MLB Network special presentation with Bob Costas.
70 years ago, on July 4th, 1939, Lou Gehrig told a Yankee Stadium crowd that he considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Less than 2 years later, Gehrig was dead from ALS. Gehrig's record of 2,130 consecutive games played was thought to be untouchable. But in 1995, Cal Ripken Jr. passed the Iron Horse and eventually went on to play in 2,632 consecutive games. Tonight, 70 years after Lou Gehrig's dramatic ballpark address, we talk with the man whose name will always be connected to Gehrig's. But before we do, here's a look back at the Hall of Fame career of Cal Ripken Jr.
The shortstop, Cal Ripken.
I was always an Oriole fan, and I've always wanted to be an Oriole. As far as a baseball player, I couldn't imagine myself being anything but an Oriole.
Line drive, Ripken catches it at shortstop, and the Orioles are the champions of the world.
Oh my goodness, he's done it again! Way back and gone. A grand slam home run for Cal Ripken. Diving stop by Cal. Got it!
There's no way to describe it. I don't think I have any secret that I can dispel at this point, and then everybody will play 1,000 consecutive games. It's just a little bit of luck and a lot of desire.
You got to want to play, and you got to play well. One reason that some guys don't play every day is they're not good enough. A guy like Cal, who was the best player on the team, every day you want to win the game, you want Cal in the lineup.
One more great memory for Cal Ripken Jr.
What Cal Ripken has done without missing a game, I don't know if people understand how amazing that really is.
Now playing in 2,000 consecutive games in a row, Cal Ripken.
It says so much about a player. To me, even more so than numbers, because preparation, discipline, all the great things that you have to do right to be on the field for that many games.
Cal Ripken Jr. has reached the unreachable star. His legacy of greatness continues.
Drive out deep to left, career home run number 400 for Cal Ripken.
There it is. Welcome to the 3,000 hit club, baseball's Iron Man.
Did he do it? Did he do it? He did! Cal Ripken Jr. in his last All-Star game hits a home run. Who wrote this script?
How do I want to be remembered? My answer is very simple. To be remembered at all is pretty special.
So here we are with Cal Ripken. Cal, two-time MVP, first ballot Hall of Famer, all the other accolades. But in a sense, you can never be fully separated from that man, Lou Gehrig. 70 years ago this week, he made the most famous speech in baseball history.
Well, I mean, it's something that I'm proud of because really I believe that going out and being a baseball player, approaching the game the way that I was taught to approach it by my dad, a sense of responsibility to your teammates, a sense of responsibility to you, that's the way you're supposed to approach the game. And when someone makes that comparison through the streak to Lou Gehrig, it's not an offense. It's not my identity. I think it's a compliment, and I'm very honored that that comparison is made just because what it represents. Not a big number for a streak, not a record that was thought to be unbreakable, but an approach to the game that was pretty honest and pure.
You know, you think about that streak. Other than Gehrig, nobody is even halfway to you. Everett Scott way back when, then you got Billy Williams and Steve Garvey and Miguel Tejada more recently. They all went past 1,000, and that's remarkable. But nobody is within half as many as you and Gehrig.
Well, I mean, I think that once you play one season, 162, I think everyone kind of relates to what that commitment is. And it's just a matter of stringing those 162s together. Going through the tough times, the good times are certainly easy. But it is interesting that there's not a whole lot of people that really can understand that to the depth. I know I've had good conversations with Steve Garvey about that and some of the challenges, and they're good, but I would love to have a conversation with Lou about some of the challenges that he went through.
You've thought about that conversation, that imaginary conversation, right?
Well, when you look at his picture, you often wonder, you assume that his intentions were exactly the same as yours, that it's not something that you become obsessed with. You don't want to break the streak for the sake of the streak. It is just, you're a ball player, and what is your role? And quite simply, my role was to come to the ballpark ready to play. It wasn't my job to actually make the lineup out. That was the manager's job. So the streak was kind of formed under those circumstances, and you just kind of continued living up to that expectation. And I would assume that he had the same sort of feelings, but I'd love to hear it.
When your time came to end the streak, you did it on your own terms. You decided when. Obviously, a fatal illness imposed the end on Gehrig's streak and led to this. Let's watch what happened on July 4th, 1939 at Yankee Stadium.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad break. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
So you've seen it before, but as you watch it, I can see it still affects you.
Well, I mean, it gives you goosebumps. You can't put yourself in that exact position because it is a life issue. In many ways, I was put in front of the microphone because you broke that record. But it was a baseball moment. It was something that wasn't so deep and emotional. And I could only imagine the two crossing and him having the ability to kind of put it in perspective for everyone else, and about how proud he was to be with that group of guys, how special it was for him to be a Yankee, is what I took from that. And he really put it in human terms, personal terms, not necessarily about himself or the baseball situation. You know, it was his life, and he still got a lot to look forward to, so it still gives you goosebumps.
The streak links you. In many ways, you were different players. He played first base. You played shortstop. He had the numbers he had in a different era. You had Hall of Fame numbers. His numbers are stratospheric. Without the streak, it's very doubtful that anyone would compare Cal Ripken to Lou Gehrig any more than any other Hall of Famer, right? But this links you forever.
Well, I think in some ways maybe you would be compared as a person, and maybe someone of character, someone that approached the game in a certain way. That link could have been there with the streak or without the streak, and I think that's what that's how I choose to think about it in the form of the streak. But I always thought it was unfair. You know, one of the game's best players, the numbers were stratospheric. In a time when you look at all the other great players, he was the best of the best. And so, you know, I never looked at myself at that position, but I was honored that at least there were some similarities in our approach and similarities in who we were as people.
As you approached the record and people began to mention him to you almost every day of your life, did your curiosity about him grow?
Yeah, my curiosity continues to grow, and I thought that as soon as the streak was over, that I would rush to learn about Lou, but it hasn't happened because I feel comfortable with that sort of relationship, and now as I continue to see images and pictures and think about it, I'm kind of drawn to, well, let me read up on him a little bit. Let me go back and watch the movie. Let me learn a little bit more about him. But I want to learn more about the person, not necessarily of the stats.
There are good biographies of Gehrig out, and of course there's the movie, so there's information there if you want it.
Well, I think many people had given me those materials. I have books at home sitting there, and every once in a while I'll walk by them, but I haven't really taken the step to pull it off and fully commit to reading, and I don't know why.
What is the reason? What do you think?
You know, I think that I pushed him away so much as a player because everyone was automatically assuming that there was an obsession with the streak, which I thought was totally wrong. And I said I didn't want to even tempt myself to think that, so I pushed learning about Lou a little bit further away from me. And I think just a comfort in your life, a transition in your life from going from baseball, because in some ways you look at baseball as a former life, and now you have other things and other responsibilities. I think I'm getting more comfortable with it and more comfortable with not being a baseball player, period. And so then you start to come back and learn about things. So I think it's just a slow process for me. It's a transition.
Lou's widow, Eleanor Gehrig, passed away in 1984. You're a young player, so you never met her. But you did know DiMaggio, who played with him in the 1930s, and you may have known other people who knew Gehrig well. Did you have a chance to talk to Joe or anybody else who knew Gehrig well enough to give you some insight into him?
Well, I've had some interesting conversations with Joe DiMaggio, and I remember sitting in the ballpark at Fort Lauderdale. Later on, it was just him and I in the clubhouse, and we did talk about the game in general and some of the characters that were in the game or some of the great players. And he spoke really highly of Lou Gehrig, and you almost feel like I didn't want to know, but at the same time I do want to know. And we didn't go into depth, but you know, the feeling that he, the kind of person he was, the way that he went about his job, the way that he was looked upon, the respect that everybody else showed towards him. You can't demand respect. You have to earn it. And it became really clear through Joe DiMaggio's words that Lou had it. Lou had it with, from everybody.
Interesting relationship, at least as far as I can get it here, between you and Gehrig in your mind, where you have great respect for him, but you don't want to be defined as a player by the streak. And if you embrace Gehrig too much and become too immersed in his story, then you've surrendered to somebody else's view of your career.
That's a little complicated view of it. I don't mind being identified as a streak. It's not a negative to me. My association is not that, well, he played in all those games and he couldn't hit, couldn't field, couldn't do all those things. I think your career is what your career is. I think the link that you have with Gehrig is about the honor you have for the game, the way you go about your job, the way you show up. And I think I felt that in the celebration of '95. Everybody else in their normal jobs related a story about the importance of showing up, the importance of meeting the challenges every day, and the discipline it takes to be there. So I think that association and that comparison is a real positive thing, and that's how I link it.
Before we go to a break here, let's pop up that picture, if we can, of May 2nd, 1939. It's the first time he sits out. It's Tiger Stadium in Detroit. And there it is, a particularly poignant picture as he watches from the dugout. What do you imagine is going through his mind?
I mean, there's a certain sadness. There's a certain, it almost seems like he's embarrassed that he's not able to be out in the field. And there's a feeling almost like a kid watching a pickup game is that I wish I could be out there, like a kid being sick. And they can't go out to play because your mom wants to keep you inside, but you can see them playing through the window. That kind of seems like that image to me. And it almost seems like, I wish I could be out there. What am I doing sitting here? So there is a sadness to it, and there's a feeling of looking from the outside in when you were inside all those years.
All this month, get ready to feel the heat. MLB Network continues our special pennant chase coverage presented by Jeep with live games 4 nights a week, all month long. See which contending teams are hot and who will get burned. Tonight, sparks fly at Busch Stadium as Aubrey Huff and the Giants look to smoke the blazing bats of Albert Pujols and the Cards. Giants Cardinals tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on MLB Network.
With Capital One's Venture Card, we get double miles on every purchase. So we earned a trip to the Grand Canyon twice as fast. We get double miles every time we use our card.
I'll take these.
No matter what we're buying.
Plus the damages.
And since double miles add up quick, we can bring the whole gang. It's hard to beat double miles.
No, we write them.
Introducing the Venture Card from Capital One with double miles on every purchase every day. Go to CapitalOne.com.
What's in your wallet? Oh, that's the spot.
As a manager, my team counts on me to stay focused, so I take One A Day Men's 50+ Advantage. It's the only complete multivitamin with ginkgo to support memory and concentration. Plus, it supports heart health. That's a hit. One A Day Men's.
Hey, Parker, want to race home? Bet I can beat you there.
With its 43 safety features, like the Park View rear backup camera,
Hi, sweetie, there you are.
electronic vehicle information center, and rear cross-path detection system, now available in the Safety Tech package. The Chrysler Town & Country is a safe bet to make.
best when you can truly be yourself. And at Holiday Inn Express, you always can. Holiday Inn Express. Stay you.
If you're in debt to the IRS for $10,000 or more, you don't have to take desperate measures to settle your account. All you have to do is put the right people to work for you, and that's as simple as calling this number. You'll speak to a tax expert who can help you negotiate a settlement that's significantly less than the actual amount you owe.
They saved my business.
I owed $30,000 and paid a fraction of it.
Call this number and get your case settled for less. Now, you only have a small window of time to settle, so act now.
If you've taken the drug Reglan, especially children and elderly women, this message is for you.
If you or a family member has taken the drug Reglan and have been diagnosed with tardive dyskinesia, call the Goldwater Law Firm right now.
I'm attorney Bob Goldwater. If you or a loved one has taken Reglan and now have tardive dyskinesia, call us right now.
If you have taken the drug Reglan and have been diagnosed with tardive dyskinesia, call 1-800-480-1700. That's 1-800-480-1700.
Continuing now with Cal Ripken, September 1995. It's not like other records where something happens, you may anticipate it, it may or may not happen. Here you could circle the date on the calendar. As that date approached, what were you feeling?
That was the only time I thought of it as a finish line, so to speak. I was always able to play it one day at a time, kind of take the value from the day before, apply it to the next day, and then clean the slate. But all of a sudden, all this build-up from all the way going through different cities, surrendering yourself to this celebration of this unbreakable record, started to build some pressure. And you almost felt like, okay, all those freakish things that could happen, that could end the streak, you know, you almost had to start to think of it in a conservative sort of way. And I was looking forward to it as a sense of relief. I was exhausted by that point. I think when you give of yourself and surrender to the process, you're doing all kinds of interviews. I'm staying after the game, signing autographs, because that part was missing in all of my responsibilities. And then you're playing on top of that. I was just waiting for that to get there.
What were the handful of times when you came closest to missing a game?
Hyperextended my left elbow sliding into second base early on in Seattle. I blew my ankle out on a pickoff play early on, about 1985, catching my spikes on top of the bag. My knee in the brawl in Seattle, when I came in and I thought that I could help protect Mike Messina from the bench, and I thought I could stop the whole bench from coming on to Mike. I couldn't. I wasn't as much of an Iron Man as I thought I was. And just a bunch of, I got hit in my elbow by Jack Morris one year, and I think the second game of the season, and I didn't have any feeling in my throwing arm for most of that year, so I had to kind of go through that. So there were moments where you wondered whether you could do it. And many times in that moment of doubt, I found that I could play better. It almost seemed like I concentrated better, I stayed within myself better when I had some sort of injury, and that propelled me to as a reason to stay in the lineup and keep playing.
As you know, amid all the adulation, there was the occasional criticism. Hey, no matter how good you are, day game after a night game, late in the season, all the wear and tear, sit a game out would help him, would help the team. How did you feel about those thoughts?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll have regrets looking back, because wondering what that would have been like. Would it have helped me? If I handpicked 8 games off a year, I would handpick the guys that I had trouble hitting, or you would handpick. But is that really the right approach? You know, every time Roger Clemens would pitch or Randy Johnson would pitch, it would be easy to say, okay, you guys deal with that. But that's the time you need to step up the most. And I never thought of it as a mental break, because you're playing every single day. What good is one game off that's going to really restore what you did? I always thought the answers were in the game. The answers were in the batting cage. The answers was in your work. And by going out there and trying to meet that challenge, you could find the answers. During the whole streak thing, I played 5 years without missing an inning. Never gave it a thought. When I was in the game and I was swinging really well, you didn't want to pass up that last at bat. You wanted to keep it going for the next game. If you weren't swinging well and it was a blowout either way, you could experiment in one of those at bats to kind of figure out what you might be doing wrong and apply it to the next game. So I always thought that was just a normal way of going about things, and I never thought that I hadn't missed an inning or hadn't got a break from the games and all that time. So it's just the way I approached the game.
Was there ever a time, maybe you weren't hurt, but it's late in the season maybe, your team is out of the pennant race, it's a day game after a night game on the road, for whatever reason you didn't sleep the night before, aches and pains, you come to the ballpark tired and you say, you know what, I just don't feel like playing baseball today.
There were a lot of those moments that you thought of, wouldn't it be nice that I wouldn't have to play today? And then there's sort of a guilt feeling that starts to come over that you were doing something wrong. And then you push it a little bit further and say, let's see what happens. And normally when you say, let's see what happens, let's go out, something good would happen. And that's what I associated. When you felt the worst, I always associated that good things were on the horizon. Mm-hmm. And by and large, they happened that way. So I thought it was a good indication that the worst I felt, that I was going to have a good game. And a lot of times I did.
Let's go back to that night in September of 1995. I know you've seen this many times, but we'll ask you to narrate it. The game becomes official, so now we're at 21-31, and this is the scene that ensues at Camden Yards. They change it on the warehouse out in right field. Mm-hmm. And I guess at first you think with Palmeiro and the other teammates there, all right, I'll acknowledge the standing ovation, I'll tip my cap, but then it took on a life of its own.
Well, I really wasn't aware coming into that last 2 weeks or so when they started that when the game became official sort of thing. I didn't know that's when the game became official. And so we started to get conditioned to it. So it was in the middle of the game when it became official, so therefore I thought I'd come out of the dugout, acknowledge a short sort of ovation, mm-hmm. and we get the game resumed, and then I deal with the responsibility afterwards. But the celebration continued, and no matter how many times I came out and said, thanks, it didn't seem to be enough. The clapping kept continuing, and finally Rafi and Bobby Bowe pushed me out there. Al Bumbry gave me a boost down the line and said, you're going to have to take a lap around this ballpark before we get the game started again. And when I first went down, I was out of a sense of obligation and said, okay, let me see if this will actually work.
There's your mom and dad.
And mom and dad almost made me cry looking at mom. But when I ran around, then the celebration that was embarrassing of some sorts
Frank Robinson
turned to be much more personal. And I had a chance to run around, and I was worried about the game starting again, but then all of a sudden I wasn't. This was probably, there's two moments in my baseball life, caught the last out of the World Series, that nothing compares to, for the feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment that comes over you. And that moment from a human level, mm-hmm. that was really an exchange, much more on a human level. Everybody cared, they related to it somehow, it was important to everyone. Then you go down the lap around, and then you had that exchange to people that you've seen over the years, and have the experience with the California Angels, and then to come back and have that little celebration with your own intimate family in the middle of a game. That was the greatest human experience in my life.
And it occurred at a time when baseball was in a bad way. The strike the year before had blown out the World Series. The beginning of the 95 season was lost also before they returned to play. A lot of fans are saying, I'll never come back. And many fans pointed to that night as the night that rekindled their interest in baseball and reminded them why, in spite of everything, they'll always love the game.
Well, I always thought that the celebration had built to a point partly because of what happened in 94, is that I think people were genuinely looking for some sort of link to that feeling that baseball gave them in years before. And because Lou Gehrig represented all the right things, and he represented the feeling of when it was a game, that became linked to me. And the streak, I think, people really embraced that. Mm-hmm. And so I think the celebration built as a result of the fact that the World Series was canceled. There was labor issues, and there was some people that were mad, but I think they were genuinely looking for something good in the sport, and they linked themselves to the streak. And so I think the sport benefited from it. I certainly benefited by the added attention and all that kind of stuff, but it was really a desire to find something really good in the sport, and it was good timing in that particular year.
Your dad was a stoic, leather-tough baseball man. He wasn't, at least publicly, that demonstrative. Mm. That thumbs up from him was like anybody else jumping up and down, right?
Well, that's true. In the middle of all that celebration, there was many different moments that you can capture. One of those moments was getting eye contact. And Dad was a man of few words when he was expressing his emotions and his how proud he was of you. And you could tell there was like 1,000 words that were going through. And I didn't really see the thumbs up. It was just more the expression and and him being there. In some weird way, there was a thought that he might not be there. Because in some ways, he says, if it's time to go and they don't want me anymore, then I'm not coming back ever. But I knew he was going to be there. And the moment of just making eye contact, it was probably an expanded version of my first big league home run. Hit my first big league home run, I'm excited as all get out, running around, and my dad is the first one to shake my hand at the third base coaching box. And it was almost as if he'd done it to everybody else, Eddie Murray, Ken Singleton, and did it the same exact way, except for the moment of his eyes, and you knew that he was extra proud of you.
He was the total organization man, Oriole organization, all his life, worked his way up, long-time minor league manager, then ultimately big league coach. And when it came his time to become the manager of the team was in decline.
Yeah.
And eventually, they fire him. And this is one of the most awkward situations ever. The signature player of the franchise is still in the prime of his career. His dad gets fired. Mm-hmm. How tough was that for you?
Looking back, in hindsight, it's never as tough as when you go through it. But certainly when I went through it, I was a free agent at the end of that year. That was the whole collusion era where you couldn't sign your multi-year contracts. I ended up signing a one-year deal that made me free again at the end of that year. And the first 6 games in the season, they fire him. And I'm thinking, okay, the organization has changed. They're going in another sort of direction. I don't even know if I fit in that, and I don't know if I want to fit in that organization. My dad gave his whole life. He played an instrumental role in helping the organization develop players, build the Oriole Way model. Mm-hmm. And and sometimes in life it is a matter of timing. And he never got his opportunity to manage the club. I thought he was going to be the successor behind Earl, but then they went to Joe, and then finally got his opportunity a few years later, and he wasn't in a situation really to impact. The talent of our team had gone down. We were clearly in a rebuilding mode, and no one said we were. And it wasn't until we got into the 0-21 stuff that everyone said, okay, I guess you guys are really in a rebuilding mode. Let's move in that direction and try to rebuild.
Yeah, you were 0-6 when your dad got fired. In comes Frank Robinson, who had success with the Orioles the next year, but they lose 15 more to go 0-21. At that point, did you seriously consider leaving the Orioles? I mean, it's your dad.
The day they fired him, I thought it was a foregone conclusion. I had no desire to play. I never thought about playing in another city. It was my hometown, and the Orioles were my team. And I thought that, okay, where else would you like to play? And if I had to make that decision in the first month, the first 2 months, maybe even the first 3 months, if I had to make that decision, I wouldn't have been there. But after a while, time heals some of your wounds. You start to think what's important to you. I valued being at home. I valued being there. And I thought I was young enough to withstand a rebuilding process. I didn't know what was in store for me or in store for the Orioles, but I knew that I wanted to commit to the city of Baltimore and I commit to the Orioles organization, even though they fired my dad.
Back to that night in September '95, something else that was really appealing about it. A lot of things now in sports are overblown, overhyped, contrived. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there was hype leading up to the record because that's the focus of the media. But there was nothing about that night that seemed orchestrated. Yeah. And I think that's what was, or part of what was so appealing about it. It just seemed authentic, spontaneous, genuine, no bells and whistles. It was Cal Ripken through and through.
Well, you couldn't have planned it out any better than what transpired. And clearly I didn't know what to expect. And my mindset was, I'll be willing to celebrate till as long as you want after this game's over, but let's honor the game and continue to play the game. Let's be fair to everybody else in the ballpark. The game should come first, and then we'll celebrate afterwards. But once the 22-minute ovation, or however long the ovation was, when it continued and continued, we all were looking at how do we get this game going? And I think it was Rafael Palmeiro that came up with the idea, and Bobby Bo supported it, saying, you got to take a lap around this ballpark. And I thought, well, that's the last thing I want to do. I didn't go voluntarily. I had to get pushed down there, and then once I went through it, then it all seemed to unfold in a very magical sort of way. The only thing that I did do intentionally was that my family gave me a shirt, 21-30 Hugs and Kisses, and I wanted to show my kids, who were very young, that I had worn the shirt underneath my jersey. So I took my jersey off and presented it to them. But the real thing was just to reveal what was underneath. So I went and changed my jersey and came back out. That was the only thing I thought about doing because I really wanted to show them that I had the shirt on.
Do your kids, Ryan and Rachel, have perfect attendance records at school?
No, and I didn't either. I love it, the fact that people associate the importance of perfect attendance and all the ways that they can interpret what that means, because it is important to show up. It is important to be disciplined in your activities. It's important to accomplish anything. You have to be willing to do it on a day-to-day basis. So I love the fact that that is, but you know, we all in school, we all have challenges, we all have pressures, we all get sick, and it's not the end all.
You know, I could just imagine that note, circa 1995. Dear Miss Jones, please excuse Rachel's absence yesterday. She had the sniffles. Signed, Cal Ripken Jr. That just wouldn't have played.
Well, I mean, I don't expect anything. The key to doing what I did, I believe, is to finding something you really love to do and pouring your heart and soul into it every single day. And if it's on your terms and you can do it, then that's very unique and personal to you. And a lot of people related to that sort of approach, whether it's haven't missed a day in 30-some years.
One more thing about that night. Talk about a perfect sense of theater. Just as you would in your last All-Star game in Seattle some years later. You come through with a home run. As I remember, a 3-0 pitch where you swung away. President Clinton is in one of the broadcast booths. I mean, the whole thing's almost surreal.
You know, I was a pretty good 3-0 hitter in the minor leagues, but I developed some sort of phobia by not swinging or swinging to making an out on 3-0. And I remember having enough experience in all-star games and big sort of games that, and the wherewithal to understand you can't perform on demand unless you relax, unless you kind of stay inside your zone and let the action happen. And I remember thinking, I would talk to myself a lot during that game, okay, just be relaxed, see the ball, let it happen, put a good swing on it. And when it got 3-0, I had a conflict. Say, I'm not a very good 3-0 hitter, what do I do? So I convinced myself it was 2-0. I got back in the box and said, really see the ball, get a good long look at it, put a swing on it. And good things happened on those occasions that you mentioned. I wish that I could call it upon and come through in the clutch every single time I wanted. I couldn't. But in those moments, it enhanced the event because I didn't want it to be about just a streak. I wanted it to be about the team performing well. We won, and I wanted to actually perform well within the course of the game. That would make it meaningful to me. So it was important to do well.
Rip to left! Oh my goodness! He's done it again!
All right, your new Energy Star qualified Kim Orleats all set up.
Fantastic. How can they afford a new washer and dryer right now? They just remodeled a month ago. Something's going on.
Smart shopping is what's going on. Anyone can buy new appliances through the Sears layaway plan. You just lock down the model you want now and pay over 8 weeks.
I want her life. I want her new washer.
New appliance layaway plus Sears everyday low price guarantee. Search Sears appliances for the week's hottest deals and advice. Sears.
McDonald's new line of Angus snack wraps. Although more maneuverable than its burger predecessor, its payload is still substantial. Angus beef bundled with fresh tomato and crinkle-cut pickles in a sleek snack-sized wrap. So, it is imperative to keep the nose of the snack wrap elevated to ensure... Pull up! Pull up! To ensure the contents do not shift in transit. Angus Axiom number 81. Please remain seated for the duration of the feast. McDonald's new Angus snack wraps. The simple joy of Angus.
With Orbitz, I know what to expect from my vacation. Bad dog balloon pop. Because Orbitz has price assurance. Leaf and face, Marie, man with computer. If another Orbitz customer books the same hotel or flight for less, they'll send me a check for the difference automatically. So I know I'll get their lowest price. And I like knowing what to expect. Bike, unrealistic splash, embarrassingly transparent.
When you Orbitz, you know.
Like summer, it's here, but not forever. The Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event. Lease the 2010 IS250 for $349 a month for 36 months, with $3489 due at signing. See your Lexus dealer.
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile.
Want to help them pack less? Give them the laptop that packs more. The new Dell Inspiron 15R with the Intel Core i3 processor for smarter multitasking and McAfee Security Center. Get yours shipped in 24 hours, just $549.99. Call or click and chat today.
Pepsi Max, please.
Good song.
Great song.
So, Pepsi Max has 0 calories, huh?
Yep.
How many calories?
0.
0?
0.
What are you doing?
YouTube.
Pepsi Max. 0 calories. Maximum Pepsi taste.
MLB Network. Our national pastime all the time.
Welcome back to MLB Network's special presentation with Bob Costas.
Continuing with Cal Ripken, as the 95 season begins, and it begins late, there was talk of using replacement players. How concerned were you that the streak, by some weird technicality, would end?
I wasn't concerned. To me, it was always about doing the right thing. And I always thought playing every day or coming to the ballpark ready to play, and the manager chose you, was the right thing. And in this particular case, it was the right thing to do. So I never worried about it for a minute. If that's the way it was going to be, so be it.
When you finally decide that it's time to sit out after 26-32, it's toward the end of the year in '98, the Orioles are at home against the Yankees. How does it unfold?
I didn't really tell a whole lot of people. Matter of fact, I walked into Ray Miller's office about 10 minutes until game time, and I didn't want to deal with it before the game started. And the whole idea of doing it so late was that the switch would occur, it would unfold sort of naturally. I wouldn't have to be burdened with it. The team wouldn't have to be burdened with it. I'd be burdened with it after the game. And something really magical happened. There was two kind of funny things. Ryan Miner was my replacement, and he was told late. They didn't make this serious announcement, so when it was time to take the field, he didn't want to take the field because he thought it was some sort of rookie prank, that it really couldn't be happening. And I had to convince him that it was okay to go run out in the field. And once he did that, then the Yankee dugout, I think, realized what was happening first. And then they, I don't know who designed it, but they all came to the top step of the dugout and gave me, a standing ovation.
Here it is. And the Yankees, by the way, are in the midst of one of the great seasons in baseball history, their World Championship season of '98. There's Ray Miller with Joe Torre. There you are on the bench, not quite knowing what to do with yourself. And here come the Yankees.
Yep. And they came up, and it's one of the few times, I guess, most players, when you're competing against the other side, you don't get that sort of honor bestowed upon you. And it was really heartfelt from, there's Boomer Wells and Tino and Posada.
Tim Raines.
Yeah. And so it was really a good feeling. And then it almost seemed to spread through the rest of the ballpark without even any sort of announcement. And everybody realized what was happening. And it was important to kind of see this not as a sad ending. It was important to see this as reflection on, how good it was, and you want to make it a happy experience. So it was important that you smiled. It's important that you went out to the bullpen and things, because I really didn't know what to do. Eric Davis was pretty funny. He said, look, if you want any help from knowing what to do when you sit on the bench, I've done that quite a bit. Put your soft shoes on. You're not playing today. I can give you some tips on what to do in the off day. But I went around in the clubhouse. I went out to the bullpen for a little while because I always wondered what it was like out in the bullpen for those games. But the weirdest feeling came over. It really felt like you weren't a part of the team, that you weren't in the inside, you were in the outside looking in, which I didn't like that feeling a whole lot. You came to the ballpark. You're supposed to be ready to play the game. You have to change your routine. You have to accept the fact that you can't go out there and play. I never got comfortable with that. I couldn't have been a role player. I couldn't have played part-time. I couldn't have pinch hit. I couldn't DH every once in a while. It just would drive me crazy.
We saw the Yankees expressing their respect. We saw the Angels joining in '95 when you broke Gehrig's record. The scene in Seattle when A-Rod said, no, not third base, you play shortstop. From all quarters of baseball, even Don Fear said to me during the strife of '94 and '95 that one of the concerns of the players is if there are replacement games and those games count, then Cal's streak will end. Not just Oriole players, throughout baseball. You were a unifying force. No matter where somebody was on any other baseball issue, it seemed that the respect for you was universal.
Well, I take pride in that. I mean, I think it's how you conduct yourself, it's how you play, it's how you compete. I never wanted to do anything that was cheap or wrong to the other side. Even funny, even a hidden ball trick. I'd warn the other team that somebody had the ball and tell them where it was so they wouldn't come out. And there was a method.
Wait a minute. You would tip the opposition off that
Absolutely.
That one of your teammates was going to pull a hidden
Because there
ball
was a
trick?
short-term gain from it, but there was a long-term loss if you really look at it. Because if some of the second baseman had the ball and you were trying to get the guy to come off second base, I'd walk right up to him, say it was Derek Jeter, and I'd say, stay right here, he's got the ball. And he'd look at me for a minute like you're kind of crazy, then the ball would be revealed, and there was a certain trust that was born out of that. And I could argue that your interaction and the way you played the game, that would seem like it was a amateur sort of trick, and I didn't want that in the professional game. But the value to that is you establish trust so that when you ask questions about strategies or hit and runs and those sorts of things, they will readily give you the information that you could use in your positioning, and I thought that was okay. So you had a long-term value of a relationship and continuing to gain information, or a short-term joy of the hidden ball trick worked out. You embarrassed the other player, and then you wouldn't have a relationship.
What other gamesmanship was okay with you? Stealing signs? You're on second base. You hit a double. You can steal a sign. You can pass it on to Eddie Murray. That's cool, right?
No.
No?
For me, if you could see it yourself, that the guy was tipping his pitches or he's bringing the ball up and you could determine that, that's fine. Even though it's the obligation of the catcher to put down a sequence of signs that change that, I didn't think it was right. And I don't know why my sense of right or wrong, I didn't think it was right to give those signs to the hitter. A lot of people say this is the edge of the game and that's the way it goes. I didn't like it as a hitter, and I didn't like it. I thought there was something wrong with that.
If a teammate was loading one up on the mound, what would you say?
And that happened a few times as well. And that was always a quandary for me. You get a two-hopper, you catch it at shortstop, and then you go to the fight and it's loaded with some sort of lubricant on the ball, and you airmail it into the first row or the second row of the bleachers. You get the error, the guy gets on second base, but you can't tell anybody why you threw it away. So I always thought it was their decisions that they made. I wouldn't condone it. I wouldn't do it, but I didn't control their decisions.
Your dad always used to say, it isn't practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. When you looked around, teammates, opponents, when guys didn't do it the right way, would you ever say anything?
Yeah, that's a high standard to put on anybody, and if you start to think that happened to us when we were kids, but really you had to understand what the spirit of that message is. It is when you practice, if you go through the motions, you develop bad habits. But if you practice right, as if it was game situations, you develop good habits. So certainly when you watch other people's working habits or their ability to execute, you had a responsibility on the team to help them, shape it. It's better to take 10 ground balls the right way than 200 the wrong way. And so those sort of values and principles were easily transferred across the organization. And when somebody wasn't doing it, there was a base of which you could go to and talk to it. So certainly I did that all the time.
When you see guys today, and some of it happened when you were an active player, and it goes on today, guy hits a long fly ball. It doesn't go out. It hits the top of the fence. Now he's thrown out or he's barely safe at second base. He says, I thought it was out. Well, why not run until you're sure it's out?
Well, when you play, I guess I was at bat 12,000 times roughly in 3,000 games. There are games when you don't run. But as long as you understand that you made that mistake and you didn't do it and you consistently try to do the right thing. No one's perfect. No one can run every single time. But it's the ones that actually do it over and over again and make the same mistake are the ones that you have to get to. So certainly it doesn't take talent to run. And it does look bad if the ball does land in there and you don't get there. It's a penalty to the team. Not only is it a penalty to yourself, but it's a penalty to the team, and you don't want to put yourself in a position to penalize the team.
Late in the streak, there was some speculation that managers felt their hands were tied. The streak was bigger than them. It was bigger than the Orioles. They had to write your name in, even if their judgment might have been day off or whatever. Did you sense that? And at some point, did that play into the decision to finally say enough?
Yeah, probably a little bit, is that, they felt that their hands tied. I don't agree with that. I don't agree. If you're the manager and you're charged to be the manager, it's your job to make some tough decisions.
Well, suppose Davey Johnson had said,
make all the decisions.
1996, 1997, Davey Johnson says, either you're slumping or I think, we got a big series coming up, day game after night game, off day tomorrow. I can give you 2.5 days off if you sit this one out. If Davey Johnson had said that, you would have said?
Well, if they give it to me as an option and it's a point of discussion, then we have a discussion about it. If you say it's my decision as the manager to sit you down because I want to do X, Y, and Z, then I would respect that decision. But if you offer it, what do you think I should do? My dad took me out of the consecutive inning streak. We'd given up 10 home runs in the game. It was a blowout game in Toronto. In the 8th inning of the game, I sit down next to him on the bench, and he said, what do you think about coming out for an inning? And I go, what do you think? And he goes, I think it would be a good thing. I said, okay. And that's my dad, but it's also the manager. I often wondered why the players that jaked it, why the players that came out weren't asked to defend their position more. You know, every once in a while, if they dodge Randy Johnson or they dodge somebody else, they almost would consider, oh, that's a good thing for the team. You know, he needs that day off. You could rationalize it any way you want. But there's a lot of guys that had hamstring problems that all of a sudden conveniently missed a start, but the very next start they would stretch a double into a triple. And you go, how did your hamstring heal that fast?
Well, Randy Johnson left town.
Why wouldn't they have to stand up and defend why they didn't come in the game? To me, that's a personal affront to your team. Because when Randy Johnson is pitching, that's the hardest. You probably won't beat him anyway, but you got to give it your best and effort, and you have to stand up for those sort of challenges. So the irony all the time was I had to defend a desire to play the game, in my opinion, the right way, to show up and play. You know, why wouldn't the people defend not showing up and not wanting to play? Why wouldn't they have to defend that?
There's an iconic guy in New York with the Yankees, Derek Jeter. Has another year after this one left on his contract. Obviously, the Yankees would want him to be a Yankee for life. He's a Hall of Fame shortstop, but there are statistics that say, with the new sabermetrics, that he doesn't get to as many balls to his left as some other people do, that maybe he's not quite the positive at shortstop as he has been, and he should move to another position. You got A-Rod on one side, you got Robinson Cano on the other side. What do the Yankees do with Jeter?
Keep him at shortstop. If you look at Jeter and you're making an assessment, you know, you heard all the things and the different forms of measurement. There's all kinds of factors in there, and I wouldn't say that's definitive measurement. You'd first look at his physical skills. Does he have the same sort of explosiveness to his left or right that he had? Physically, he's in great shape. He has good foot speed. He has good quickness. You can measure those things. But as you get older, you know, the importance of positioning, the importance of understanding the game at the higher level, you know, starts to help you and aid you as some of that quickness starts to deteriorate. I would say that I don't see a real discernible problem with Jeter's quickness. His experience and his ability to perform under pressure is a value that you might give up because his range comes down this much. I was criticized for not having any range at shortstop when I went over there. I had to figure out how to position myself from the very beginning. And in some cases, they said I lost 3 steps. And I'm thinking, if you lose 3 steps, you're only covering this much ground.
But you had anticipation.
But anticipation, playing the game, understanding where the ball's hit, they're all things that can help you when your skills start to go just a little bit. But I don't think Derek's at a point where his skills are gone.
More with Cal Ripken after this break.
First ball swinging, tough chance for Cali in the hole, long throw in time. A thing of beauty.
With Capital One's Venture Card, we get double miles on every purchase. So we earned a trip to the Grand Canyon twice as fast. We get double miles every time we use our card.
I'll take these.
No matter what we're buying.
Plus the damages.
And since double miles add up quick, we can bring the whole gang. It's hard to beat double miles.
No, we write them.
Introducing the Venture Card from Capital One with double miles on every purchase every day. Go to CapitalOne.com.
What's in your wallet? Oh, that's the spot.
You're a good man, but you have a secret.
He used to be invisible.
Perhaps you do not have a woman in your life.
Now he's a target. George Clooney.
What side are you on?
The American. Rated R.
And now I'll turn it over to the Gecko.
Ah, thank you, sir. As we all know, Geico has been saving people money on RV, camper and trailer insurance, as well as motorcycle insurance. Ah, sorry. Technical difficulties.
What about this?
What's this one do? Maybe that one.
Okay, let's keep rolling. We run motorcycle insurance?
Take 15 minutes to see how much you could save on motorcycle, RV, and camper insurance.
The guys who drive a heavy-duty truck have some heavy-duty demands. Like enough horsepower and torque to get out of just about any situation. A payload that beats the other guys flat out. A frame sturdy enough to bear up a max towing capacity that's over 10 tons. And a braking system tough enough to bring it all to a stop. Heavy-duty demands. Gentlemen, your truck is ready.
I'm Jillian Michaels, TV's toughest trainer. And now you can burn 5 times the calories working out around the world with me. Introducing the new Nordic Track Incline Trainer. The ultimate weight loss machine just got better. iFit Live, powered by Google, brings the world to your feet. Walk on the Golden Gate Bridge. Run on the beaches of Hawaii. Hike the Rocky Mountains. The new design of the Incline Trainer automatically inclines to 40% and declines to 6% to simulate the world's terrain, so you burn 5 times the calories. No other machine does that. And all you have to do is walk. Plus, with the innovation of iFit Live, I'll control the speed and the incline of your workout so you get results. Guaranteed.
Call or go online to order your new Nordic Track X7i.
Get this experience, the best trainer, and I guarantee you'll get amazing results.
For more information, call 1-800-483-6108 or go online to NordicTrack.com.
Baseball's biggest stars shine brightest on MLB Network.
He got it!
Our national pastime all the time.
Back now with Cal Ripken. Sometime in the late 1990s, you and I were at a charity event that Kirby Puckett used to put on annually in Minneapolis. And you were having a beer, one beer. And I was talking with you. And my son, who was then about 10, walked into the room. And you looked at me and you said, you kind of shielded the beer, and then you said, is it okay? And I said, sure, it's okay. You were having one beer. But you were, and this wasn't a public thing. There were no photographers there, and you knew I wasn't going to tell the story. I never have until now. But that was a concern to you, how that might look to a kid.
Yes and no. I mean, I was always considerate and sensitive to the different situations you'd be in. And you're smart enough to understand that you can be seen, or perception sometimes becomes reality. I never proclaim myself to be, the perfect person. I do like beer. I do drink beer. I probably drank more beer than I should have drank. But there are certain moments, especially if you're taking a picture with a kid, certain times when you think it's appropriate and when it's not. It's all about what you feel is a sense of right or wrong. And when you're in the company of kids, there is a sense of responsibility, whether you're a baseball player or not, to behave in a way that was appropriate, and then you have a good not image, but you provide a good example. But beer is all right in society. You go to cookouts and you have things all over the place, and you're eating crabs. There's nothing better than eating Maryland crabs with a beer sitting there and it's caked with Old Bay.
Hey, where would every
seasonings.
team be without its beer sponsorship?
That's right. So it's there. It's a reality. But I am sensitive to certain situations, and that was one.
Lots of players are gracious, and they'll smile and they'll sign an autograph as they're walking by. You used to make it a point after games to stay for sometimes an hour or more and sign. Why was that so important to you?
Well, I mean, that becomes legend after a while. I mean, I did it, a handful of times, maybe 6 times in the 1995 season, because I felt the balance of my life was thrown out of whack. So when you had more media responsibility and more things were coming on you, the thing that was being pulled out was the ability to sign your name for the fans that come to the ballpark. And I always enjoyed that sort of interaction. It was a way to kind of bring the people in the stands down to the baseball actions and vice versa. And I enjoyed that interaction, but it was being pushed out in the time allowed. So the only time I was wired from the game, it was all over, I thought, I got time after the game. Let me just try it. I didn't know it was going to turn into 2 hours afterwards where people would line up. And some of those things, when you do that once or twice or 3 times, then all of a sudden people remember it as Cal did it every single game. It wasn't true, but it was my way of giving back, and it was my way of making that connection. And I wasn't doing it as much in the time that I normally did, so I just tried to do it after the game, and it turned into a unique sort of exchange. But I always like hearing and understanding why people like the game, what brings them to the game. And the game's a great game all by itself, but it wouldn't be nearly exciting if people weren't in the stands who cared about it.
The race for the pennant, the home stretch, the whole enchilada, whatever you call it. At MLB Network, we call it the best time of the year.
I just don't think that Fitzy can hold up.
And every weeknight, MLB Tonight covers all the bases with live look-ins to all the action, plus in-depth analysis from players who've been there.
I don't know where they go, but you can never have enough pitching.
Up to the minute, in real time, in the race for all the marbles.
Doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish.
MLB Tonight, weeknights at 6 Eastern and Sundays at 5 on MLB Network.
Give yourself an edge. New One-A-Day Men's Pro Edge. A complete multivitamin with more magnesium to help support healthy muscle function. More B vitamins to help convert food to fuel. More confidence in a healthy you. New One-A-Day Men's Pro Edge.
I like your messy hair. I like the clothes you wear. I like the way you sing. And when you dance with me, you always make me smile.
We believe you're at your best when you can truly be yourself. And at Holiday Inn Express, you always can. Holiday Inn Express. Stay you.
Have your investments dwindled? Has your retirement nest egg disappeared? Do you know the reason for the loss? Are you suspicious about how your broker is managing your investments? Brokers have a legal obligation to invest your money based on your financial needs and goals. If your broker isn't upholding their obligations to you, call Sokolov Law today at 800-447-9332. You may be able to recover your loss. That's 800-447-9332. I'm a paid non-attorney spokesperson for James Sokolov, Wellesley, Mass.
Fios is bringing Hollywood straight to your door like never before with Fios Movie Night. Put on the popcorn and gather your family every week because you've got instant access to the latest blockbusters on demand. Check out this week's big premiere. Where there's a wimp.
She's a girl. Where do I grab her? Wow.
There's a way. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the movie. Just press the on-demand button and make it the perfect night in. This is Fios. This is big.
This might have been the last hurrah, at least on a national stage, All-Star game in Seattle, all right? And you take your position at third base. You're voted in by the fans. You've been playing third base for a few years. A-Rod is the shortstop, and he says, oh, no. You're coming over. And at first, you know, Ryan Miner thought that it was a rookie prank when he had to go out and play third in September of '98. At first, you're thinking this is a joke, right?
I don't like to be surprised. And there was some red flag that was brought up earlier. A reporter asked me, you know, whether this was going to happen or not. And I dismissed it as like the dumbest idea in the world. Because why would that happen? And I was scared at first. I like to have some sort of preparation. I had this big glove on my hand at third base that I nicknamed Humongous because Rawlings made me a little bit extra glove because I felt I needed that at third base. And then I'm thinking all of a sudden, this is not the time or the place to be doing this. But then once I started to think about it a little bit more, and I knew I was the only one in the stadium that wasn't in on this, when Joe Torre was pointing to the shortstop, I went over there and started to think, what a wonderful gesture this is. This is from a tribute from Alex Rodriguez that says, you know, your success at shortstop as a bigger person might have changed the mindset and opened up opportunities for myself and for other players, maybe even Derek Jeter and some other guys. And I
Bigger
saw
guys.
that.
Instead of a small, compact guy, instead of an Omar Vizquel or an Ozzie Smith guy, or a Luis Aparicio, one of your predecessors in Baltimore, that you could be a 6'4", 225-pound guy and be a shortstop.
Yeah, the stereotype might have been broken a little bit, as Magic Johnson might have done in point guards when you were 6'9", that there's a value that if you can play that position. And I looked at it and said, what a wonderful tribute. So then it wasn't until after it was all over, and that I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to be surprised, I'd rather be prepared. And I wasn't, and my first reaction was a negative one. But upon hindsight and thinking about it, I think it was probably one of the best gestures anybody's actually done for me.
85, when you broke the record, you hit a home run in that All-Star game.
Well, I developed a little momentum. I started, once I announced my retirement, I guess in June, the monkey was off my back and the pressure was off my back. I started performing a little bit better with the bat. They had a couple farewell tours through it. I started to feel more confident. And when I went into the All-Star game, I didn't try to hit a home run, but I wanted to perform. I wanted to do well if I'm going to play in the game. I didn't feel as deserving. Didn't have the best first half, but I was voted in. And I went to the plate. And it was in the shadows. And I looked out and I go, oh, this is, my expectations lowered right away. And I just said, stay within yourself, put a good swing on the ball. And a lot of people think mistakenly that Chano Park grooved me a fastball on the first pitch so I could hit a home run. Well, if grooving a fastball at 95 miles an hour in the shadow is grooving it, then you can't do that on demand. But I hit the home run. The ball went out of the ballpark. It was a great feeling coming around the bases. I was received very well by the people in Seattle and also by my teammates in the dugout. It was a wonderful way to say goodbye.
Cal, thanks very much. Great to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Came back without her. That's when the Mexicans started calling him Borrachon. But Spanish for...
I know.